This week on Loose Ends, we have music history. Elvis and Cliff together on the same programme. If not, unfortunately, in the same studio because of the way we have to do things while COVID-19 is stalking the earth. Elvis is, of course, Elvis Costello, the prolific British singer-songwriter now based in North America. His latest album is called Hey Clockface, released 43 years after his first album, My Aim Is True. And Cliff is, of course, Sir Cliff Richard, the British icon whose pop career stretches nearly 20 years further back than that. Cliff has just published his autobiography, The Dreamer, and his latest album, Music, The Air That I Breathe, is out now as well. So let's start, though, with Cliff Richard, Sir Cliff Richard, who's been a British pop and rock and roll star for as long as there have been British rock and roll stars. His first hit, Move It, written by his guitarist Ian Samwell on a Green Line bus on his way to a rehearsal, put Cliff on the map, on television and in the charts in 1958, and he's remained in the public eye with a loyal following of fans ever since. I think it's only the pandemic which has stopped him touring the world, moving and a-grooving at the moment. He's certainly still recording. Cliff's latest album, Music, The Air That I Breathe, is out now. In his long career, Sir Cliff has had plenty of ups, one or two downs, and some notable trials and tribulations to cope with, much of which he has crammed into Cliff Richard, The Dreamer, which is his autobiography. And pretty much your dreams have come true.
Well, they have, actually. As I was speaking with my co-writer, Ian Giddon, who's an author, we spent about 5 or 6 days in Portugal, full days, and he questioned me on everything. I remembered most things. What I didn't remember was statistics. Things like playing Wembley Arena and playing 18 days, and I didn't realize that I had sung to 250,000 people. So those kind of things were kind of a shock to me again.
And one thing I think you'd forgotten, you'd written as a schoolboy to a pen pal in, I think, Australia, saying you wanted to be a famous pop singer. And you'd forgotten that, but she dug it out and sent it back to you.
Well, yeah, because I went to Australia and I'd got this letter from this lady now, and she enclosed a copy of the letter I had written. I remember the fact that in my English classes as a youngster, the 12, not even a teenager, they were encouraging us, and I was given this name and address in Australia, and I wrote it, but I was shocked.
But I'm fascinated by the early years, because in your book, it seems like 1 minute you were not wanting to be in a school play because you had to sing, and maybe 2 years later you were on television singing and on Top of the Pops. So did you change your mind in that, or were you just being shy just for the school play purposes?
Well, I was shy because even when I had started sort of trying to sing in front of the mirror and all that, and trying to look like Elvis, when my family came over, cousins and all that, my mum and dad would try and get me to sing, and I couldn't do it. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But the minute I faced an audience as a professional, it just seemed to happen. I seemed to sort of roll myself into it, and I got better at it slowly as the years went on. And now, of course, I absolutely love it.
But the other thing that shines through your book, or one of the several things that shines through in your book, you're really quite competitive. You wanted to be the person who got the number one. You wanted to outshine Marty Wilde on the television. You wanted to rack up the hits. Where does that come, that steely determination to succeed?
I think hearing Elvis for the first time made me want to be like him. I used to dream, not that I would be like him, that I would wake up and find I was him.
Yeah.
And what it did was it focused me, because don't forget, it was the beginnings of rock and roll in America, and we were really fortunate to come in at that early stage. And all I could think of was there was nobody else sort of singing like that in England. So we had good singers like Dickie Valentine and Matt Monro, who were fantastic, but there was no rock and roll group. So I focused on that. And the funny thing is that it separated me from not only my friends, but my family. You can't really get to survive 62 years in one business unless you are totally and utterly committed.
Yeah.
Now, that could be a fault on my part, but certainly in the following years, I was able to do a lot for my family. I made new friends. I kept in touch with some of the older friends, but it's a matter of being focused, and I'm not quite sure whether I got that from my mother or father.
Of course, your father died at quite an early age, but he had bought you your first guitar for whatever it was, 20, 30 quid. A pretty good investment, it turned out.
Yeah, it turned out that way, but my father was unusual in that he would not. First of all, when we first got to England, he refused to go on the dole. and rather travel 2.5 hours each day to get a job.
Yeah.
But he also didn't like to buy anything if he couldn't afford it, if he couldn't pay for it.
Yeah.
But he obviously saw my eager intent and bought me a guitar that cost £27, and I mean, I don't know what that would have been in those days, but quite a lot more than he could afford, and was paying it off monthly.
Yes.
The irony of it is that on my very first professional tour, the last date was in Bristol. And believe it or not, when our instruments were left outside the stage door to be picked up by the bus, somebody stole the guitar.
Oh.
And my dad hadn't even finished paying for it then.
You mentioned the book. Well, there's several points in your book. You say you had a girlfriend or girl sitting in your lap in the car, a girlfriend that you were interested in. And with all of them, you said, no, I'm not going to continue with this relationship. It's more important that my career goes well and the fans are, looking to follow me. That's the sort of relationships you're talking about that did not survive your need to be successful as a rock star.
That whole area of rock and roll when it first started, don't forget, I was only 17 when I made my first record.
Yeah. By
the age of 18 or 19, I was barely mature. And yes, I did have a girlfriend called Jean, in fact. And that's the time when I came out of the Finsbury Park Empire stage door. She was on my lap in the car. I turned around and saw fans with the program stamping them into the gutter. So for me, for wanting this so badly, and of course, everybody always told me, you pop stars, you can't have a girlfriend. So I followed that lead, really. Yeah. And in the end, I don't understand why I'm still here. But when you bring up a topic like that, it reminds me that I was utterly focused, and nothing was going to get in my way. Yeah. Not marriage, not anything.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of the answer, because I honestly don't know how I'm here still, after all these years, actually making records and having them played on some radio stations and touring and selling out. It doesn't make sense to me, Clive.
Well, you had a similar thing to consider, though. When you converted to Christianity, you mentioned in your book, you thought about giving up pop music altogether, because they don't go easily together, firm religious beliefs and being a rock star. But in the end, you although you realised it might not help your rock career, you did carry on with Christian and were very open about it. It wasn't something you kept private. Did you think about that seriously? Deciding on one or the other?
When it came to publicly stating it, I had to really think. I spoke to a lot of my Christian friends, and they said, sometimes you do have to give up something. And the only thing, that I felt I could give up my career for was my faith. Because if God is real, if Jesus is real, then it's an ultimate discovery. So when I was invited on the Billy Graham platform, that I think in 1964, I agreed to do it. I agreed to go up, sing and speak about my faith. And so in a very minor way, I felt that I was prepared to sacrifice my career. And suddenly God did make steps in my life again, because the minute I thought of becoming a teacher, because some of my friends were, and they were working with charitable organizations, I was prepared to sort of say, okay, I'll do this. I'll find something else to do. And then the producer said, you say you believe these things, let's do a gospel album. And I thought, oh, okay. Then I got calls from Tyne Tees Television, and they said, we'd like to do a series of 6 shows based on the parables of Jesus, and we'd like you to star in it. So I thought, oh, then Billy Graham asked me if I would make a film with his company, and it would be a film about God and Jesus. So I suddenly thought, wait a minute, having my name is probably a plus if you're a Christian, if you're prepared to use it. So I felt, okay, then I won't change my life at all. I'll just be more active in the Christian section of it.
Now, I must just ask you about what you're up to at the moment, because I mentioned in introducing you, you were supposed to be on tour now or soon, because that's been closed down. But you are making music and putting it out at the moment. What have you got out at the moment?
Well, at the moment, as you mentioned very kindly at the beginning, I've got an album that I recorded only about 4 weeks. I finished recording it 4 weeks ago. I was in the studio in New York, and the producer was in LA, but he was zoomed into me.
Yeah.
And so I was able to record 5 songs that people will know. They're classic songs.
Yeah.
2 that are brand new. And there are 5 duets that I do with people like Albert Hammond, Sheila Walsh, Bonnie Tyler. It's a fun album, and
Yeah.
it's very diverse. That's what I like.
These are duets
And,
you do without
I'm already
meeting up
think-
necessarily.
Yes, you can. Technology now permits you to be able to do that.
Now, the other thing, of course, you did in addition to music, you had lots of parts on stage, which I'd forgotten, but also on film. I think the first film I saw was you in The Young Ones and Summer Holiday. But your very first film was called Serious Charge, which was starred Anthony Quayle, 1959.
No, I remember the film very much. I was terrified to do it because all I had done before was a school play with my teacher, Jay Norris, producing it. So it was a bit of a terrifying thing. But of course, the film was really quite racy for its time. And I didn't have a major part in it, but I did have a massive big hit, and it supplied me with my first big #1, which was Living Doll.
Yes, well, we remember Living Doll, but we're going to hear something from your latest album, The Air That I Breathe. P.S. Please, a special version you recorded for us.
Yes, it'd be nice to hear that. I mean, it's not quite the same version, of course, but just for you, this is it.